Elias had left his tray unattended for just 5 minutes. He'd gone to fetch a mug of bitter, recycled coffee, expecting his gray-brown protein loaf to still be waiting when he returned. But when he came back, the tray was empty. The utensil lay discarded on the floor. At first, Elias thought it was a prank. Maybe one of the other miners, sick of the monotony, had decided to liven things up. But a faint scuffling noise made him freeze. It was coming from behind the storage crates near the far wall. Moving quietly, Elias approached. The mess hall was dim, the lights on low power mode, casting long shadows. And then he saw her. She was small, frail almost. Her skin shimmered faintly under the artificial lights, a pale lavender tone that marked her as not human. Her hair, or what passed for it, hung like silvery strands, almost translucent. She sat curled against the crates, clutching his protein loaf in trembling hands, devouring it like she hadn't eaten in weeks. For a moment, Elias just stared. His instinct screamed at him to sound the alarm. Protocol was clear. Any non-human presence in the outpost was to be reported immediately. But something about the way the girl ate, like every bite was a battle for survival, made him hesitate. "Hey," he said softly. The alien girl froze. Her eyes, large, luminous, almost too big for her face, snapped up to meet his. Fear radiated from her in waves. She tried to bolt, but her legs gave out beneath her. Elias could see the sharp angles of her bones beneath her thin skin. She wasn't a threat. She was starving. Middle. Elias crouched down slowly, hands open. "It's okay," he murmured. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl didn't answer, at least not in words he could understand. She made a soft chittering noise, protective, as she curled tighter around the food. He should have called security. He knew it. But instead, Elias sighed and lowered himself to the floor.
"Eat.
You need it more than I do." For a long time, the girl didn't move. Then, cautiously, she resumed eating, eyes never leaving him. Elias sat in silence, listening to the desperate sound of her chewing. Over the next days, she returned. Always at night, always near the mess hall. Each time, Elias would accidentally leave extra portions out. And each time, she would appear, thinner and shakier, but grateful. Eventually, she began to trust him. Not fully. Her kind of fear ran deep, but enough to stay in the light instead of the shadows. Enough to meet his gaze without flinching. It was then that Elias began to piece together her story. Through broken words, gestures, and the halting assistance of a translation device he rigged from survey equipment, he learned that she was one of the last of her kind. Her people had once lived in harmony beneath the dense forests beyond the dig site. But when the humans arrived, with their drills and machines, the delicate ecosystems collapsed. The girl's clan had starved one by one. She was all that remained. The realization hit Elias harder than any mining accident ever could. His people hadn't come here to wage war. They hadn't fired weapons or burned cities. But through simple survival, through mining and stripping resources, they had destroyed an entire civilization without even noticing. And here she was the proof. Fragile, starving alone.
The choice.
Elias found himself at a crossroads. He could report her and follow protocol. The company would likely detain her, study her, maybe use her as leverage to claim even more of the planet. Or he could protect her. Night after night, he brought her food. He gave her blankets, water, even trinkets to distract her. Slowly, she began to speak. Her name, or something like it, was Sirali. She was young by human standards, barely more than a teenager. One night, as the storm winds howled outside the habitat, Sirali spoke a phrase Elias hadn't expected. "Home gone. You family now." Elias's throat tightened. He hadn't thought of himself as anyone's family in years. Back on Earth, he'd been just another worker, another body shipped off to distant stars. But in Sirali's eyes, he saw something fragile and desperate. A trust he couldn't betray.
Conflict.
Of course, secrets never last long on an outpost. One evening, Elias returned to find two security officers standing in the mess hall, scanning for traces of unauthorized presence. Someone had noticed the missing food supplies. Panic surged through him. If they found Sirali, it would be over. He distracted them as best he could, claiming he'd seen rats chewing through the crates, offering to set traps himself. The officers weren't convinced, but they left. That night, Elias found Sirali trembling in the vents, too afraid to come out. He reached for her, voice breaking. "I won't let them take you. I promise." But promises in the void of space were fragile things. The next week, the company announced plans to expand deeper into the forest. More drilling, more destruction. Elias knew Sirali's world would be completely erased. Unless he did something. Ending. Elias made his choice. Using his mining clearance codes, he falsified maintenance reports and shut down drilling in the sector near Sirali's home forest. It bought them time, but it wasn't enough. He knew eventually the company would override his commands. So he took a greater risk. With Sirali's guidance, he mapped a hidden cavern system, an underground refuge untouched by the miners. It wasn't paradise, but it was safe. With careful planning, he smuggled her there, carrying supplies piece by piece under the cover of darkness. The night he left her there, Sirali clutched his hand with surprising strength. "You, heart-strong," she whispered. Her eyes shimmered, not just with gratitude, but with something deeper. A bond neither of them had expected. When Elias returned to the outpost, he was thinner, more tired, and carrying secrets heavy enough to crush him. But when the company resumed their drills, when they searched for signs of alien life and found nothing, he allowed himself a small smile. Because he knew Sirali was alive. And in a universe where entire species could vanish without notice, that meant everything.